I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P, and you're watching the Cartoon Palooza. Look, honestly, Norm of the North took a lot out of me, so I think it's time to embrace the love. And hey, Valentine's Day is around the corner, so you know what? This month, it's all about the love. I'll be talking about cartoons I love, and cartoons I feel deserve a little bit more love. And what's the best place to start? Pixar. Everybody loves Pixar. But what if I told you that there was a Pixar movie that really isn't a Pixar movie, but it's made by the same people that work on Pixar movies that I think you should check out? That movie, The Brave Little Toaster. What? You haven't heard of it? Wonder if that's a millennial thing. Not only is my third Patreon review one of my favorite animated films, but originally supposed to be the first computer animated film honed by none other than John Lasseter. Back in the 80s, Lasseter was experimenting with integrating computer effects in traditional animation. But rather than use it as a background or effects animation, as was utilized in the late 80s and 90s, Lasseter figured out why not have the whole movies computer animated. Lasseter, and a few animators who would go on to work at Pixar, storyboarded a film based on a short story from Thomas Disch. How did Disney respond to this? We're gonna take your consideration, wipe our butts with it, and fire you for it. This left the film on the cutting room floor, while Lasseter took his crew out to Lucasfilm. The rest is history. The talking toaster flick was shelved and later used at Disney's satellite studio Hyperion. So as you would imagine, there are going to be quite a few parallels to another film John Lasseter worked on.
A113, this is it.
We got a group of abandoned items, trying to find their way back to their owner, who's going back to college. This leads them to the inevitable truth that their owner may have moved on from them. This leads to dozens of moments where the group gets put through traumatizing moments, including a dumpster scene at the end where they're awaiting an ultimate demise. Sound familiar?
So play nice.
Look at me, I mean really, boss, I'm a can opener, a lamp, and a shaver. Oh God, I'm a mishmash!
You can say they're similar movies, but overall the tone is different. Because Toy Story focuses on the growth of a kid and his relation to his toys, it's different from how a kid grows up with his kitchen appliances. The idea of abandonment is still there, but as we find out by the end, there's a neat bow tie that allows our hero to reconnect with our heroes. Toy Story has that in the first few films. But because Andy and the Master are both adults with different intentions, its resolution is different. Of course, the kid who's gonna be going to college is gonna want to bring back his appliances. Therefore, seeing our hero reconnect with the owner is somewhat more convincing than Andy in a sappier moment donating his toys. Sorry, Lasseter, not everybody's as connected to children's playthings as you are. And cars for some reason. But if there's one thing this movie has a slight disadvantage, which for me is a slight advantage for some other reasons, are the tonal shifts. Anybody who's seen this movie can tell you that this movie's tone has an insane way of shifting from lighthearted to dark and depressing in the matter of seconds. At the start of the film, you got characters going on their adventures, singing cute musical numbers, and having shenanigans with silly cartoon animals. If you thought this was too much animated sugar and silliness for you, don't worry. Give the movie a few seconds to shift to dark and depressing in 3, 2, 1. At least Pixar has time to realize that there's balance between light and dark moments. Up is a happy movie with a deep depressing moment that doesn't take away from the experience, and adds to one of our characters in many ways. Most people leave Brave Little Toaster traumatized. One reason is its music. Looking back on this film, I've noticed the music is interesting, mostly in how it's utilized. You never feel like they're abusing the soundtrack like most kids' movies today, where they just play songs to bottle feed emotions for its audience. When the movie needs you to feel uncomfortable, they'll abandon any soundtrack for silence. Hold on a second longer, to the point where it feels like a Kubrick or Paul T. Anderson movie. I find it fascinating how the composer would work on such basic movies later on in his career, like Alvin and the Chipmunks, and even that one movie that should not be named. Some scenes made me feel like I was listening to the soundtrack of a horror movie. Listen for yourself, and you can make a comparison. Another way are the characters' limitations. They don't live forever and have clear limits, mostly dealing with being used as electric appliances that need a place to put their plugs. It leads to scenes like in the intro where they need to find a way to bring a movable electrical source if they want to use the vacuum for transportation. It makes sense since we have to ask ourselves, what are the extent of these characters' abilities? Part of it adds neat treats and edges to their personalities, like the radio using his frequencies to pick up where they need to travel, personalities that are questionable for sure. I never understood if all these characters are about the same age, why do you have the blanket act like he's 5 years old?
I want our master.
Even other characters pick up on it and call him out for it.
Ah, don't be a wet blanket.
He's such a baby.
One of my favorite characters in the film The Vacuum, voiced by Tony the Tiger, is that he's 80% a grouch who's been so jaded with the idea of being abandoned that throughout most of the film he's pissed off. Our main character is the Toaster, who's probably the most developed of the bunch. Early in the film, it's established that he keeps everybody in check and knows everybody's strengths. But at some point in the film, even he has his limits. It isn't until one scene that comes out of nowhere where a flower is fascinated with his reflection, tells him to screw off, and then this happens. It's so brief, but believe it or not, comes back without directly being told. He starts to become more empathetic towards others, like the blanket, and tries to put himself over others, including the ending which, let's just say there's a lot of martyrdom in this film. Martyrs in fiction aren't anything new. Even the idea of someone sacrificing themselves for the greater good goes as far back as the biggest allegories in history. What are martyrs supposed to teach us? Knowing there's a cause bigger than us, worth fighting for. But that there's a sense that because there's nothing else in your power to fight for, that you may as well give up, for the needs of the many to outweigh the few. This don't happen once in the film, but about a dozen times where our heroes basically sacrifice themselves to save everybody else. People may look at that as being excessive, but throughout the film, brings up how characters feel worthless and decrepit, to the point that they even sing a song about feeling worthless and decrepit. The idea of killing themselves knowing it will help someone else is so intense you see characters intentionally killing themselves on screen. Yeah, I could see why a lot of kids aren't checking this film out. I can imagine all the emotional scars it left the original audience with. I know reboots and remakes are not often greeted with praise. If the original's good, then why does it need to be remade? Personally, I think there's certain aspects about the brave little toaster that could be changed. Either updated for a new audience, or improve things that the movie needs improving on, like the tonal shifts and looming themes of death. Have someone who has an understanding of simple storytelling sprinkled with dark, mature themes. Have someone like Pendleton Ward. Yeah, I know it's an odd choice, but given how two things that worked about Adventure Time are the strange and surreal mixed with the serious levels of storytelling, I think it could work. It would also help because this animation can be improved. A lot of these designs are simple, mostly due to animators who originally intended for them to be CG. Based on the technological limitations at the time, they're not going for hyper detail. Around this time you had Luxo, and one of the main characters in the movie is a freaking lamp! Even with its flaws, I love this film. Something about a movie that challenges its audience with sharp tones will always leave me in suspense, even when I've seen this movie as often as I've seen Daylight. But given how this film takes the formula that Toy Story would perfect, makes Toy Story more acceptable for mainstream audiences. Lasseter knew that if you're going to feel bad for some characters, give them feelings that are easily conveyed and understood. Granted, I think it makes more sense for people relating to toys as opposed to the home appliances, but the film was a step in the right direction. Pixar has no fear when it comes to tackling emotional moments, but it's obvious that this movie dives headfirst to make you feel. Hence why I think it's still worth checking out for yourself. Just remember, evil clowns, explosive AC units, and suicidal cars may not be your thing. Let me know in the comments section, what is your favorite underrated classic? Comment and let me know. I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P, and stick around because there's more love coming your way on the Cartoon Palooza.